All right, let's bring in Patrick Vernon. He's a cultural historian and social commentator, joins us now from London. Patrick, so first up, the language, the concern of the doctors, the close family in attendance is leading many to conclude that when further news comes, it will be grave. Is that how you see it?
Well, the very fact that literally the whole family are now in Balmoral tells you that it is grave. Obviously, we don't know the full conditions, and we don't want to speculate, to be quite honest. But it's grave. The very fact that the whole family's there with her tells you that it is a tragic and terrible situation.
Indeed. The Queen has been such a constant for 7 decades. Whatever your view of the monarchy, it's hard to imagine a time when she might not be around.
Yeah, I mean, she's an institution, a bit like the NHS. And she's always been there, and and I think that's why there is so much respect and deference to the Queen, not just here in the UK, but throughout the world. I was in America a few weeks ago, and each time I spoke, because the Americans have fascination with English accents, especially if you're a black person speaking like this. The first thing they always ask you is, how's the Queen? As if I know the Queen intimately. I have met the Queen a couple of times, but it's just interesting that America, despite the fact they're very proud of their independence, they always want to know about the Queen. Indeed. That tells you a lot, actually.
Indeed, I think many British people have experienced that. She's also head of the Commonwealth. How is she viewed across Commonwealth countries? Because in some, she's a representation of the colonial past, isn't she?
Well, I think the whole Commonwealth knows that anyway, to be quite honest. But the Queen has, for her diplomacy, her interpersonal skills, she's been able to, remember, she's been around for a long time. She was around when lots of countries in the Commonwealth were still colonies. And lots of those countries had their independence in the 60s and 70s. So she's also, there are people, she knows the history, she's familiar with the circumstances of those countries, and she's very sensitive to that. Obviously, in the Caribbean now, there is a growing movement around an apology and reparations, and that is something I think for the future royal family will have to deal with, to be quite honest. But for the time being, there is a high degree of respect for the Queen across the Commonwealth, actually across the whole world, to be quite honest.
She's been such a fundamental part of the fabric of Britain, of its sense of being, of its sense of culture. Do you think when the time comes for her son, for Prince Charles, to take over, we're going to see that'll be manifested in some kind of cultural change to the nation?
Well, I think we're starting to see some of that signs already, to be quite honest. We've seen, Charles has been given more and more responsibilities over the last 12 to 18 months, to be quite honest. So, and I'm sure they've got whatever plans or preparations in place, to be quite honest. So let's see what happens. But in the meanwhile, I think we have to focus our thoughts with the Queen. She's a fighter, and who knows, she might come out in defiance and be ready to do stuff. The very fact that she was still doing business a few days ago and gave the official anointment for Liz Truss to be the next Prime Minister is important. Remember, she has dealt with nearly 15 Prime Ministers in the UK all this time. So she has been around for such a long time, and who knows what will happen. She might still be around that bit longer. Indeed. I think everyone's hoping that bit. And let's pray and hope that she pulls through what she's going through right now.
Indeed. Patrick Vernon, appreciate your analysis. Thanks very much indeed. Patrick Vernon, cultural historian and social commentator.